Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sunday's edition of Weekend Waypoints. I'm your host, Joe Healy, here to take you through Saturday's results around the SEC, get you ready for the Sunday finales in the conference. A busy day in the league on Saturday, including a number of close shaves for some teams, some scares for some SEC teams, and of course, LSU got with against Omaha. But most teams survived those scares. So we will dive into everything that happened. Obviously, additionally, some high-profile tournaments going on. We got some good results from those as well. Real quick, before we get started on anything else here, want to let you know, as you can see on our backdrop there, if you're watching live, Weekend Waypoints this season is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors, the top name in sporting goods, outdoor goods, Academy Sports and Outdoors. Happy to have them along for Weekend Waypoints, for the D1 Baseball podcast, for Highway to Hoover, for a whole bunch of stuff on our website at d1baseball.com. A place near and dear to my heart, Academy Sports and Outdoors. Very excited to have them on board this season. Okay, folks, let's get into it. I see Moonshine in the comments. No, not a new shirt, Moonshine. This has been I wore this one last season a few times, but not as much as maybe some others. Visa V16 on YouTube. Good morning. He says good morning there. John Bro says baseball is a funny game. Anyone can beat anyone on a given day. Go Tigers. Absolutely true. And that's my big picture thing is like, it's easy to have like just a quick twitch reaction of why did we struggle against Team X or Team Y, or in LSU's case, why did we drop a game to Omaha? And I get it. Like you want to take care of your business against the teams that you're just far more talented than, but John brings up a good point. Like it's baseball, and sometimes you just have days where you almost get no hit, as it turns out in LSU's case. So, so I would just say largely, let's remember that as you get into difficult games early in the season. I think if you look back and, I don't know this for certain, but I would bet you go back and look at, you would go back and look at teams that have won national titles recently, and there's at least one loss on their ledgers from that season that would make you kind of like tilt your head to the side, like when your dog doesn't understand what you're saying. That's just part of the game. You got a comment here says it's a good point. How many undefeated teams have there been in the history of college baseball? That's a good point, because the answer is zero. This isn't football or even basketball. Teams are, even the best teams in the country are going to take, the very best teams are going to take 10 or 12 losses. And that's the very best teams, national title level teams. Randy Peterson says Butch and the boys doing okay. War Eagle. That's true. They are taking care of business. Taking care of business against Wright State this weekend. That's an impressive thing there. Good morning. Carl Dunn says good morning. Good morning, Carl. LSU went down in game 1 because of what Skip Bertman said, timely hitting, but came back in game 2. Omaha was a sound team. Yeah, Omaha tends to be pretty solid. I mean, again, it's a team you're way more talented than, so you want to win running away, but that's just not the reality. But yeah, timely hitting is a killer. Like that's a thing. You have a couple of big chances that you let go by the wayside, and all of a sudden it starts to kind of compound on itself, because then hitters start to press, people start to freak out a little bit, they start to get a little more anxious at the plate, and that's obviously not conducive to having good at bats. So yeah, that I think that's right on there, Carl. Cornwall Baseball Next says more I think parity also has something to do with it. Like the transfer portal just means rosters are different. And so I think these mid-major teams are older. The power conference teams, in this case SEC teams, are taking a little longer maybe to like gel as a team, because there's more incoming players every offseason than there really ever has been. So I think that's a factor as well. I think it's a good point. James Gillum, hi James there. He says Quick looked really good. That's Riley Quick indeed. Still on a pitch count at Alabama, but 4 really good innings for Riley Quick. But South Carolina is still scaring me, playing below average teams close. I don't blame you, James. I'm interested to see Carolina against Clemson, because I think we'll have that'll give us a kind of like a better reference point. But I'm with you generally that it feels like South Carolina, generally speaking, the first 2 weekends has just kind of been messing around a little bit, like not really, putting teams away. So, yeah, I'll be interested to see. James says bloodbath. I assume you mean the Clemson series. Maybe, honestly, because Clemson's really good. But that series has a way of always being more competitive, maybe than we anticipate when one team has been better than the other. Replay Reel says Arkansas versus Michigan. Thoughts? Michigan has not played well this weekend. Obviously, I'm not a Big Ten expert, but they played really well last weekend in Puerto Rico, and I was kind of interested to see what they do this weekend, and it hasn't gone particularly well. So I like Arkansas there. Obviously, Arkansas's pitched really well. We'll talk about that here shortly. And actually, while we're at it, let's go ahead and get to the game of the day, because that is a good segue there. Arkansas 2, Tennessee 1 at Globe Life Field in Arlington. One of my big takeaways was a fantastic atmosphere. Aaron Fitt was there and said it was every bit as good as it looked on TV. His second largest college baseball crowd at Globe Life. The first, by the way, was also Arkansas TCU a couple of years back. And that game, I was listening to the broadcast. They said that game ended, I think they said 16-8, maybe, or 18-6. That's what it was. This one could not have been more different. A 2-1 game, 2-1 win for Arkansas. I'll pull up the box score here so you can follow along. One of these days I'm going to get better about talking while I'm sharing my screen, but today is not that day. Yeah, as you can see here, I mean, it was all TCU early on. They built up a pretty well. They didn't even build up a big lead, obviously, but they held the lead for a long time. 7th inning, Arkansas got a 2-run double from Kuhio Aloy. Somebody in the chat yesterday or the day before, I guess it was yesterday, said if Arkansas, could just recruit 7 more Aloy brothers, maybe they'd be onto something. And that's funny because those guys have done a lot of heavy lifting so far for Arkansas, but obviously pitching won the day here. For TCU is Tommy Lepore. He ends up giving up the runs there, but that's a tough luck loss for him because he was really good. Wichita State transfer with a big arm, comes out throwing almost 100 miles an hour. That guy's going to be really, really good. And he might already be really, really good. Last year, Wichita State, he was, he went through some freshman, bumps in the road. He may already be really, really good, but if not, he certainly will be there in short order. Arkansas, of course, pitched well. Also, it was a Zach Root start, 10 Ks in 5 innings. You'll obviously take that. Beidelshees pitched well, 2 2/3 scoreless, and then Christian Fouch, kind of got in himself in a little bit of trouble, but then was able to ultimately wiggle out of it, get a strikeout to end the game. Look, from an Arkansas perspective, I understand why this still makes you nervous about the offense. I totally get it. I think in your shoes, I would be as well. And I guess from my perspective as an analyst of this stuff, I am a little nervous about it as well. I would have liked to have seen a little something more. But I guess on the other hand, it's important to remember this was always how this team was going to win games. Now, maybe you would have liked to have won this game 5-1 rather than 2-1, but this was kind of the blueprint when you build a roster like they built. And look, I like this offense more than I liked last year's or the year before's. I think it's deeper. I think there's more impact in this lineup. So I'm not even necessarily saying that. I'm not necessarily saying that it's not improved. I'm just saying that this was kind of how they drew it up. So I think that's important to remember there. But we'll see. I mean, again, I understand the frustration. We'll just have to continue to monitor this. Will this be another team where there's a lot of pressure to win games like this? Or will they open it up a little more offensively as time goes on? Obviously, time will tell. A weird play in this one late in the game. I maybe the 8th inning or so. I forget exactly what inning it was, but double play ball goes to Cam Kojal at first. He throws down to second as he's never got a good look on the replay of what exactly happened, but it looks like he like maybe fell down or, something, because he ends up on the ground and crawling back to the bag and then kneels on the bag as the runner is coming down the line. And of course, because he's kneeling across the entirety of the bag, he gets barreled into. TCU challenges to see if it's obstruction, which I'm frankly not sure how he could have obstructed any more. Maybe if he fully laid down on the bag, but it was called not obstruction. And Kirk Sarloos after the game said the reason he was given was that with Kojal kneeling on the outside bag, the green bag, there was a path for the runner to touch the white bag. Now, two things there. One is, even before you look at a replay or you see the play, that sounds not correct based on the understanding of the rules when we talked about the green base and the white base. Like, one is for the defender, one is for the runner. I could be wrong, but I don't think the defender gets to choose what bag he decides to use. But then secondly, I also just disagree. I don't think there was a path unless you want Cam Kojal to get barreled over like that. To me, a path is not that you can like touch it on your way by. A path is that you can run straight through it without, kneeing the first baseman in the head, right? And so I'm interested to hear more, like if there's more coming there, if maybe there's a clarification on the rule or whatever, but obviously didn't. Well, I guess it could have impacted the game from TCU's standpoint, but frankly, at that point of the game, it didn't seem like TCU was really going to score anymore in that game, just given how well Arkansas was pitching. But weird play. Go watch the replay of that if you get a chance. It was all over social, so I'm sure you'll be able to find it. But weird deal, certainly. And really the first. I've heard of other things happening with the double base, but really the first high profile game, I would say, where the double base ended up being a weird character in the deal. I'm still very pro the double base, but that was a strange situation there. So big win for Arkansas. Still some questions to answer in the lineup. Pitching is right on schedule, honestly. All right. Let me go over these comments here. We got a lot of folks waiting. I appreciate the questions. I'm scrolling. I'm sorry here. Visa V16 says root, cheese, and Fouch. Pretty good Saturday rotate. I agree. If you can put that together every Saturday, Arkansas is going to win just about all of its Saturday games, for sure. Scrolling. John Bro says LSU Dallas Baptist this Wednesday at Globe Life Field. I hope a good crowd turns out. I think it will. Obviously, LSU fans travel. You could kind of double up maybe, and because they're playing in Frisco, so maybe as an LSU fan, if you're have the flexibility to do so, you can go to that Wednesday game and then go to Frisco for the weekend. I think that will be a good game. Sean Miller says all Alloy all the time. Yep, that's that's been an effective formula for better or worse. Corey Moulton says, "Are you actually going to start talking about OU and that they have a program?" We talked about Oklahoma yesterday. They were the game. They were. We talked about them from a standpoint of they had candidate for pitcher and hitter of the day. We talked about their game against Oklahoma State being the game of the day to watch. We will certainly talk about them again today because they won that game against Oregon State. I think there's a very good chance they end up. I think there's a very good chance that they end up in the rankings this weekend. We've got at least one team coming out. Nebraska lost a series at 24, so we've got a spot for them. So they're playing really, really well. So we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but I get it. That they're definitely playing well and deserve to be highlighted. Jeremy says thoughts on the ARC win. Sorry if you already touched on this. Yeah, Jeremy, we just talked about it, but the gist is I understand the frustration about the offense still, but the pitching stepped up and made up for that. And I think, for better or worse, I think that's just how the team is built to win. Now you'd want 4 or 5 runs instead of 2, but I do think there will be, I think there'll be some of that. Expo on YouTube says, "Yep, bad call. They will fix." I certainly hope so. The double bag thing. Sean with a bit clarification here. if the defensive player has to play to the outside bag and the runner is supposed to use the inside bag, we had the same issue at A&M last week. Okay, I mean, that's good clarification. It'll still be interesting to see what, if there's further discussion on that this week, because it's also just like, if you see the video, it's also just like the interpretation of that. I'm not sure I agree with. I'm not sure there was a clear path to the inside bag, but obviously we'll see. Rax on X says, time to respect Oklahoma baseball. Man, the Oklahoma fans are coming in strong today. Yeah, no, they're playing great. Like, the pitching has been every bit as good. The offense has been better than most, myself included, expected. Yeah, certainly an impressive start for Oklahoma. Happy to talk about them. Mark will also be at that. My colleague Mark Etheridge will be at the series a couple of weekends from now. Their first SEC series at South Carolina. So, and he's also scheduled to make a trip to Norman this season. So we will be all over Oklahoma as the season continues to go on. All right. Oh, Brandon VZ asked, Bama cracking the top 25. We'll see. Obviously they're behind Oklahoma at this point in the pecking order. And then I don't want to speak for everyone else because there's multiple people involved in doing the rankings, but Bama has played really well this weekend. So they're certainly, if they continue to play like this, they are certainly going to elbow their way into the mix. Okay, let's talk pitchers and hitters of the day here. Hitter of the day candidates, Ike Irish, a couple from Auburn, actually 3 from Auburn today. Ike Irish, 3 for 4. Derek Fabian, 2 for 3 with a homer, 3 runs batted in. Chase Fralick, catcher out of the 9 spot in the order, 3 for 4 with 3 runs batted in. Again, we mentioned it up top, but Auburn really handling Wright State. And that's pretty impressive, especially coming off of a series last weekend against Holy Cross where Butch Thompson actually said it himself, like, I thought we'd be further along at this point after the series win over Holy Cross. It looks like his team has caught up to where maybe he thought they would be because they're playing really well this weekend, both offensively and on the mound against a team that I just assume is going to be good within the context of the mid-majors because Wright State always is. So impressive stuff there. Jared Jones in game 2 I specify game 2 because game 1 was not really an offensive explosion for LSU in that 5-4 loss to Omaha. But in game 2, Jared Jones went 3 for 5 with a double and 5 runs batted in. In the same game, Stephen Milam went 3 for 3 with a double and a walk. I think we talked about it enough up top, but LSU just lost a game in which the other team played really well and maybe they were a little flat. Like, you'd prefer to win those games, but you're going to lose some of those games, and that's baseball. And if the offense is inconsistent next weekend against DBU and in Frisco, then there might be larger consequences for it, and then we can talk about that then. But yeah, just kind of a weird deal yesterday. Being on no-hitter watch against Omaha was not really what I expected to be doing for part of my Saturday. But that's college baseball. Tyler Bell from Kentucky, the standout freshman, 2 for 3 with a home run and 4 runs batted in their blowout win, 7-inning win over Belmont. We'll talk about their pitching here shortly, but impressive stuff from Tyler Bell there. Obviously, given his pedigree, they're expecting big things from him this season, and a good game against Belmont to win that second game of the series. Going for the sweep today is Kentucky. Luke Hill for Ole Miss, 3 for 4 with a home run. Obviously, he's going to have to be a big part of things there. For Ole Miss to be as good as they want to be, given his experience. A pretty routine win over Eastern Kentucky for Ole Miss yesterday. Mississippi State, after a close call with Missouri State on Friday, yesterday took care of business in a lot more routine fashion. Noah Sullivan went 3 for 4 with a double. He was also arguably the hero of that win against Missouri State because he had the 2-run double that made it 3-1 after it had been 1-1. So big day for him again. And then Kyle Branch from Oklahoma, off to a really hot start as a freshman. He wasn't necessarily the most high profile of the recruits that Oklahoma had, but right now he is arguably the most impactful. 3 for 4 with 3 runs batted in. The Branch brothers off to pretty solid starts to the season. Colby and Kyle, but a 3 for 4 day there for Kyle Branch. But the player of the day is R.J. Austin of Vanderbilt, 3 for 4 with a double, a walk, a stolen base, and 3 runs batted in. And obviously, and that was in a win over St. Mary's for Vanderbilt there. But the stat line itself is part of it, but it's also symbolically the choice because that's the player that Vanderbilt needs RJ Austin to be. They need him to be that, to use kind of a basketball term, they need him to be that box score stuffer where it's like he's doing a whole bunch of different stuff. He's hitting for some power. He's getting on base. He's stealing some bases. And that's what he brought to the table yesterday. So I think it was a good bit of symbolism for what Vanderbilt needs RJ Austin to be. So that's the hitter of the day. Real quick, we'll get to pitcher of the day here. Some of these already mentioned, but Riley Quick for Alabama, 4 scoreless innings, gave up 1 hit. I was there for it. I wrote about it. You can check that out on the site. Still on a pitch count. Obviously, he's about a year removed from Tommy John, but looked really sharp. Came out the gate, 97 miles an hour, touched 98s. Slider was good as the game went on. That's obviously going to be key for him because even at 98 miles an hour, SEC hitters will eventually time you up. You need something else. And the slider came along and looked pretty sharp. So they're hoping to have him more or less fully stretched out by the start of SEC play. They have Texas A&M on the road to start SEC play. So obviously that's going to be it's going to be important that he's going to be in good form once they get to that game. A&M, by the way, got pushed by Cal Poly. We'll talk. Justin Lampkin pitched well. I'll read off his line here in a minute, but pushed by Cal Poly, was behind. Another yucky weather game, like low 40s, rainy, not a great hitting environment, but A&M ends up winning that one, I believe 6-1. So, they come back and get it done. That was one of the teams that got a scare. Texas also, by the way, has been pushed by Dartmouth 2 days in a row, which is a weird one. But they pull out another win yesterday. So two examples of teams in the SEC that got pushed that were kind of a surprise that ended up surviving. And again, that's just kind of what you have to do sometimes this time of year. For LSU, a couple of nominees here. Anthony Ianson, this was in the loss, but he pitched well. 6 shutout innings, 3 hits, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. Chase Shores in the second game, obviously we're going to be watching him pretty closely to see how he progresses. 5 shutout innings, giving up 3 hits. Justin Lampkin, just mentioned A&M, 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 run. It was unearned. For South Carolina, Matthew Becker. We'll see what he does against SEC competition and better competition in general, but certainly his first 2 outings have been strong. 6 1/3 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, no walks, 8 strikeouts. Matthew Hoskins for Georgia in relief, and I bring this up just because this is another example for Georgia of, like I said yesterday, where it's just like they have so many high-profile, nasty stuff relievers that you just kind of, forget about some of them. And Matthew Hoskins is a great example. 3 2/3 shutout yesterday, 2 hits with no walks and 5 strikeouts in relief yesterday for Georgia as they beat Illinois Chicago. Nate Snead, and there's a larger point here, but Nate Snead yesterday in relief for Tennessee, 4 1/3, 1 hit, 1 run. It was unearned with no walks and 6 strikeouts. I bring him up partially too because I wanted to talk about the piggyback situation with him and Marcus Phillips. I think that's really interesting because I think there might be something there because I'm a little dubious of if either Nate Snead or Marcus Phillips are true, starting pitchers that you can go out there and give you 6, 7 innings. The stuff is really good. I'm more confident Snead can do that because he had some outings last season where he got stretched out like that. We haven't seen that from Marcus Phillips, but obviously both guys have electric stuff in medium stints. So can you do like you did yesterday where one gets 4 1/3, one gets 4 2/3 or whatever, and you only have to use 2 arms to get out of the game. I think that's really interesting. We'll see if that continues, but I like that as just like a concept for Tennessee to get the most out of those 2 guys. For Ole Miss, Riley Maddox, good to see him have a good outing, 5 shutout innings with 3 hits allowed. Again, it's just Eastern Kentucky, but that's the kind of outing for Riley Maddox that they're looking for. They're not looking for him to dominate. They're not looking for him to, blow teams' doors off. They just need solid outings from him, and they got one yesterday. Another kind of not really so much a piggyback situation, but a combined effort here. Jake Clemente and Frank Menendez yesterday for Florida in a blowout win over Dayton. They combined to throw 7 innings, 2 hits, no runs, 2 walks, and 12 strikeouts. Good stuff there from those guys. And then Zach Root. We talked about Arkansas. You saw his stat line there when I had their box score up on the screen. 5 innings pitched, 2 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, 10 strikeouts. He has been that is exactly what they hoped and thought he would be. So impressive stuff there. But the pitcher of the day is Ben Cleaver of Kentucky. The slender left-hander, injured last year as a freshman, so he didn't really get a lot of run until late in the season, and even then it was a small sample. But he was very impressive in the fall and in the preseason. He's in the rotation. Looks like he could be a guy that eventually fronts a rotation for the Wildcats. Yesterday he certainly looked the part. 6 innings, 1 hit allowed, no runs, no walks, 11 strikeouts for Ben Cleaver. I don't know how good necessarily Belmont is or isn't going to be, but at least historically, yes, Belmont is not the best opposition, but they're typically a pretty solid team. So, I think that's a really positive outing for Ben Cleaver and for Kentucky, and generally for Kentucky to win that game. I think it was 10-0, the 7-inning game. To win that game like that after winning 2-1 the previous day, really, really impressive for the Wildcats. All right, before we talk game of the day, spoiler alert, involves Oklahoma again. Let's go over here to some comments here. Just scrolling. It says, Expo says, okay, off to church, then to baseball stadium for sweep. God bless all. Thanks for joining, Expo. Certainly, come back and watch the rest after you get back. But he said before that, as an ex-player, asking a fast runner to make a bag change while running full throttle is asking for injury. White bag is the only bag the fielder should be able to use. I think I'm kind of with you. The one caveat I would give there is a drop third strike situation where the ball kind of caroms off towards, the first base dugout, let's say, and the catcher has to make an outside throw. But yeah, I'm certainly willing to. I think there just maybe could be a little more conversation about that specific situation and how it was interpreted. Randy Peterson says, I thought Bub's first at bat was pretty good. I presume you're talking Bub Terrell of Auburn. But yeah, he's a guy who, just generally speaking, he's a guy who they weren't sure how big an impact he would be among the freshmen. It was like, hey, this guy's going to be really good. We just don't know what to expect as a freshman. But he has, I think, exceeded some expectations and has really shown that he is going to be an impact guy as a freshman. Midge says, RJ is on fire. I agreed. And Vanderbilt needs him to be, certainly. Scrolling. Sean with some under the radar game of the week. Maryland 35, Western Carolina 12. Yeah, we've had some wild scores of late. But that's college baseball in the early season. It might be cold some places, but also the wind is blowing out in some places. Angela Crotchfield says, good morning, Joe. I bring that up, Angela, just to say hello and hope Zach is doing well. I appreciate you still joining in on these live streams. All right, real quick, let's talk game of the day today. It involves Oklahoma again. After playing Oregon State yesterday, beating Oregon State yesterday, they've got Virginia today, number 2 team in the country, but a team in Virginia that has, I think I've said this on the show before as I previewed this, like Virginia, kind of a team that's sleepwalking a little. Obviously, they're really talented, especially offensively, but it's just a team that feels like it just needs to wake up a little. Should be a fun pitching matchup for Virginia. They're throwing Tomas Valencias out there, a highly touted freshman who pitched great last weekend in Puerto Rico. He is a Lithuanian pitcher, pitches for the Lithuanian national team, but was excellent last weekend. He'll be facing Cam Johnson, who, there were good strides last weekend for Cam Johnson. Obviously, you want to cut down the walks. He had 5 last weekend. But there were a lot of other good things. Like in some of his LSU outings, those walks might have snowballed on him, might have led to a worse result than what it was. So I do think there is some positive momentum there for Cam Johnson. But yeah, this is going to be a tough task for him. It would be a tough task for anybody, right? Because Virginia is just that talented. So I'm really interested to see how he navigates that lineup. And man, if if he can give Oklahoma 4-5 innings and keep them in, give them a chance to win. On Sundays, that's really all you're looking for from your starting pitcher, is just give us a chance to win. This isn't Friday, where you're looking for a starting pitcher to really control the game. On Sundays, you just want somebody to give you a chance to win. Cam Johnson certainly has the stuff to do more than that, but at a bare minimum, they're looking for him to do that today against a really good lineup. Looking forward to watching it. All right, that's going to do it, folks. Enjoy the baseball today. I just realized I used the Saturday background on this one. It took me 30 minutes to notice that it says Saturday at the top. Good one, Joe. Well done. Enjoy the baseball today, Sunday. And I will talk to y'all again next Friday. Live show on Friday, this time around, barring something as a last-minute change. So we'll be back live all 3 days next weekend. Thank you so much. Enjoy the baseball. Talk to y'all later.